Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Appleton Online. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you have had a blessed and enjoyable week thus far. I want to talk with you this evening concerning the topic that everybody is questioning right now, and that is, when are we going to reopen our churches for public worship? This past Friday, Governor Kay Ivey loosened some of the restrictions on public gatherings that made it possible for churches to gather again in larger numbers. Now, there are still regulations and restrictions that we are mandated to follow, but she did open up our state and made it possible for us to gather again. Now, I have been going over documents. I've been going over so much paperwork this past week. I feel like it's all just running together inside of my head. I've got most of that strewn out over this tabletop right here. I've been reading this, phasing into a new reality. Here are our state's guidelines for places of worship. Here's the order of the state health officer of the state of Alabama. Here is the governor's newest proclamation that come out this Friday. And then, of course, here are my own notes of things that I've been jotting down and trying to remember during all of this. And so, in reading over all of this, man, I'm telling you, I never thought that in the ministry that I would have to do some of the things that I've done in the last 3 or 4 years. Times have changed, and they're constantly changing, and that means that we have to change with them. It's a phrase that I heard in a movie one time a long time ago. It was an Army movie, and the phrase the guy used in it, he said, was that we learn to adapt and overcome. And really, as the people of God, that's what we do. We learn to adapt and overcome, irregardless of the situation, irregardless of the circumstance, irregardless of what comes our way. We trust God and we learn to adapt and overcome. We really begin to fail and we really begin to fall into anxiety and fear when we stop being able to adapt. And when we quit being able to adapt, what it means is that we are, as we would say it in the South, we're stuck in a rut. And we like our ruts because that rut is normal to us. And we like where we're stuck at sometimes. And the fact is, the reality is, God's wanting to move us out of that and beyond that, because God doesn't sit still. God's always moving forward. The Bible says that we're changed into His image from glory to glory. And so that's progressive. The Bible said the way of the just shines brighter and brighter. So that's progressive. So that means there must be change. There must be something to move us out of our normal to get us to the place that God wants us. And so I believe that's what COVID-19 and all of the changes that have come, I believe that's what that has done. And I have done things in the last 3 or 4 years that I never thought I would ever do. I have learned more stuff about the law. I never thought in pastoring a church that a pastor would not just have to know theology, but he'd have to have SWAT training and learn how to be a lawyer at the same time. But that's about where we are in society today. I want to discuss for a few minutes this evening. I don't want to take a lot of time. We talk about this a lot, and it's going to get real confusing and it get real monotonous, and it'll get like everything else that we're hearing in the news and on social media right now. We don't want to do that. We just want to establish what we're going to be doing for worship here at Appleton in the very near future. So here goes. Church is going to reopen May 24th. That is 1 week from this coming Sunday. Church will reopen May 24th. But there's going to be quite a few changes. The phrase that we've heard the most of here lately has been back to normal. And that phrase, back to normal, those 3 words, that's going to have to be removed from our mindset. Because a lot of things have changed in the past few months, and some of these things are changed forever. Governor Ivey has moved Alabama into phase 2 of the progressive reopen plan for our state. She did this primarily for the economy. because according to the National Progressive Reopen Plan put forth by our president and his task force, Alabama has not even made it to phase 1 as of yet. The numbers of COVID-19 cases are on a steady increase here in Alabama, and it is apparent that we have not hit our peak numbers as of yet. So actually, according to the plan that was initially put out on a national basis, we should not even be in phase 1 yet in Alabama, yet here we are going into phase 2, but we're doing this primarily for the economy. Now, I say that I'm not faulting our governor. By no stretch of the imagination, I am not faulting Governor Kay Ivey, nor should you or any Bible-believing Christian. We should not be faulting her right now or putting her down. Only heaven knows the pressure that this lady and other leaders like her have been under, trying to determine what to do for our nation, for our states and our communities, for their health and their economy. Only heaven knows. And so I do not envy these people at all. So I am not faulting her. I believe she's doing what she thinks is best for the economy and the welfare of our people. And I believe that's proven by her leaving certain guidelines in place concerning health. Now, she did loosen restrictions on gathering, and the state of Alabama is in the process of reopening. It is a process. It is a phase-in process, a gradual increase. That's what it's supposed to be. Now, there are still mandates and regulations that are necessary to be upheld in all public gatherings, and yes, even in church. We are still expected to observe social distancing. And this means when we return on May the 24th, the sanctuary is going to look different. We're going to be seated differently. We're going to enter the building and leave it differently. We're going to greet one another differently. And we're even going to park our cars differently. Now, for those that struggle with different, man, you probably need to pray and fast all that week before we come to church. Because everything about church is going to be different. It's not going to be like anything you've ever seen before in your life. And if that's a problem, I would encourage you pray and fast on that week, because everything as we know it concerning our worship experience here at Appleton is going to be different. Now, in order to comply with social distancing, we're going to have to change some things. The first one being this: we're going to shift to 2 morning services. We're going to have one service at 9 o'clock and another service at 11 o'clock. We sat down this week and we counted our congregants, and we determined that we have 177 men, women, and children who attend our church on a regular basis. We actually went in the sanctuary with a legal pad. That's some of this right here, actually. See those names? We actually went in the sanctuary with a legal pad, and we walked around from section to section and row to row and wrote down everybody's name and their children by where they sit. And we actually come up with 177 that attend on a regular basis. And this doesn't include visitors and other friends who frequently worship with us on Sundays. Now, it's hard to keep 6-foot distance between that many people without having 2 services. The hardest part was trying to figure out how to separate the 2 services. So we did the best that we could do. We counted our people alphabetically and decided to divide the service by last name. So here goes. Here's where you want to begin to pay attention right here. Those with the last name that begins with the letter A through the letter I are going to worship in the 9 o'clock service on May the 24th. Those with the last name that begins with the letter J and goes through the letter Z are going to worship in the 11 o'clock service on May the 24th. Now let's say that again, make sure we get it. Last name that begins with the letter A through the letter I. You're going to worship in the 9 o'clock service on May the 24th. last name that begins with the letter J through the letter Z. You're going to worship in the 11 o'clock service on May the 24th. Now, I realize that this is going to be difficult for some. I know some are running it through their head right now. I can hear it. I can hear it. I can hear people saying, I've never heard of such. This is the most foolish thing I've ever heard of. Well, the reason it sounds so foolish is just because we've never done it. That doesn't mean it's foolish just because we've never done it. So this is where we've got to get out of that rut and get out of that thing that we call normal and be thankful that we can come together and worship God. Be thankful because this could have been so much worse if it would not have been for the intervention of the Most High God in our health. This is going to be difficult for some, I understand, because there are probably people that will be in the other service that you will want to see. But this is where you've got to decide if beginning a public worship service is more important to you than actually just coming to socialize with church family. I realize that it's important to socialize. I realize that God made us social beings. I understand that. But at this point, we have to decide, is it more important that we're able to open our doors and worship publicly, or is it more important that we come together and see people that we haven't seen in a while? What really I'm saying is that we're at a point where who we worship has to be more important than who we worship with. Did you catch that? You want to make sure you catch that. Who we worship, that's God. Who we worship is more important than who we worship with at this point. When you come to worship service on the 24th, here's some things I want to ask you to do, some things that you can expect. When you come on the 24th, please arrive at least 15 minutes prior to beginning of service. And when you arrive, please remain in your vehicle. There will be parking attendants to direct you as to where to park and when to exit your vehicle and enter the building. Once you're in the building, then someone will direct you to your seat in the church. When you walk in the sanctuary, you'll see it's much different. Every other row of chairs has been removed. The side sections has been removed, and we have made the rows longer to try to accommodate as many people as we can. But there will be someone in there to help direct you to your seat. Same households may sit together, but not necessarily the same family. It's same households. It's only if you live in the same house can you sit together. Everyone else must have at least 3 seats in between you and the next person. And there will be no nursery, there will be no children's ministries, there will be no Sunday school, there won't be any coffee before church on that morning. Children are going to be required to sit with their families during service. And parents, we're asking that you help maintain them. I know they're full of energy and they're used to going into Kingdom Kids and jumping and running and going and moving and playing. But we're going to have to ask that you help maintain your children and keep them in that area where you will be seated without them up running around all over the place for the safety and for the health of our congregation. High-risk people, these are people that have chronic lung problems, people with diabetes, people with immune system issues, cancer patients, cancer survivors, people that have had chemotherapy for whatever the reason. These are high-risk people. High-risk people and people the age of 65 and older are encouraged to wear a mask. Not required, but you are encouraged to wear one if you would like. Please do not feel bad about wearing a mask if you choose to do that. I do not think that you are fearful or afraid. What I think is that is something that you feel like you need to do for your safety. And so no one is going to bully you. No one is going to say anything to you at all. If you choose to do that, please feel free to do that. You're among brothers and sisters here. I hope everybody's listening to me. You're among brothers and sisters here, and there should not be any fear of you needing to do what you need to do to take care of your health and your family's health. High-risk people 65 and older, encouraged to wear a mask if you would like to. For a time, we're going to have to refrain from handshaking and neck hugging. That's going to be hard for some. There are going to be some that are going to want to run and hug necks. That's good. And run and shake hands. That's good. That's what we do because we love one another. But for now, we're going to have to greet one another from a distance. We're going to have to be satisfied with seeing one another and worshiping together in the same building. So we're going to have to refrain from handshaking and neck hugging for a while. The bathroom facilities will be available, but they are going to be limited to one person at a time. Your tithes and offerings can be given through text to give, through online giving as you've been doing. And could I say you've been so faithful to do that, to keep the light on in the lighthouse here. You've done such a great job. There's also going to be a drop box in the center of the foyer that you can place them in as you enter or as you leave the building. And there will be volunteer staff readily available to answer any questions or help you with anything that you may not understand during this very different time of gathering together. When service is over, you're going to be dismissed in the same fashion that you entered. As you exit the building, please enter your vehicle and exit the parking lot so that we can prepare for the next service. Because now let me tell you what we've got to do in preparation for the next service. The volunteer team has got to clean and sanitize all the hard surfaces in the bathrooms. That means all of the toilets, all the sinks, all the countertops and stalls and doorknobs, all that has to be clean. Not only that, but we've got to sanitize all the chairs in the sanctuary before the next service begins. So we're not going to have a whole lot of time to do that. So as you exit the building, as you are dismissed, go straight to your vehicles. Please enter your vehicles and exit the parking lot so that we can prepare for the next group of worshipers that's going to be coming in at 11. All that said and done, there's really no way to cover everything that needs to be covered just sitting down talking about it. I'm pretty sure that in all of this paper that I've got laid out here, I'm pretty sure that I've missed something and not covered it completely somewhere along the way. But we are doing the best that we can here. We want to provide a safe and healthy place of worship for our church family. Some of this may be too much for some of you. But I say this as I did 2 weeks ago. If I'm going to make an error in this thing, I'm going to make an error on the side of caution. The things that we're doing are things that are necessary to protect your church and its leaders from liabilities right now during this hectic time. Not to mention, these regulations have been handed down and are things that Alabamians are supposed to be abiding by. I hear people say it on social media all the time. And sometimes I think we would be better off just to learn from Jesus. You know, Jesus, when he was being arrested and when he was being beaten, the Bible said he opened not his mouth. And I think sometimes that we would be better off if we did the same thing. If we learned how to just close our mouth and not say anything. Because sometimes it's hard to differentiate between what Christians say on social media as an opinion versus somebody just being a smart aleck. It's hard to determine the difference. And I hear and I see what people say and the comments that people make. Listen, I can't help what they're doing at Walmart. I can't help what they're doing at Lowe's. I can't help what they're doing at the beach. The same mandates that I have read to you are the mandates that I've talked about tonight are the same mandates that people are supposed to be abiding by at Walmart. You've been in there. You've seen the social distancing stickers everywhere. It's not Walmart's fault that the people don't do it, is it? It's the people. At the beach, regulations have been given. At your big department stores, regulations have been given. At the smaller mom and pop's businesses, regulations have been given. We have the responsibility to follow these regulations as the people of God. Now I know that there are folks that have this idea that Christians are free to do anything. Well, Jesus actually dealt with that. One of the disciples talked to him about paying taxes one time. And Jesus said, children of the kingdom are free from the things of this world. But, he said, to keep from offending anybody, go pay your taxes. And then he told him where to catch the fish. And there was a coin in the fish's mouth to pay the taxes. And Jesus said, when he told him to go pay them, he said, pay them for you and me. So even Jesus did that. So we have a responsibility. And then when you tie in what Paul taught us in Romans chapter 13, when you tie all of this in, the church has a responsibility to be different than the rest of the world. We may not like everything, we may not agree with everything, but I promise you this one thing, we have a responsibility to be different. So let me encourage you, don't complain. Don't complain during this time. Let's not be a duplication of the children of Israel. You remember those guys? God delivered them from 430 years of slavery and sent Moses to lead them out, and he led them out, and everything they came to, that bunch of folks complained. And every time they complained, they always asked to do the same thing. Let us go back to Egypt, Moses, or they would say, I wish we were back in Egypt because back there we had this, this, and this. Isn't it amazing how people always want to go back to what is normal to them, even when what is normal to them is not as good as what God has in store for you. God had the promised land in store for that crazy bunch. That land that flows with milk and honey. And they were constantly wanting to go back to slavery. That's just how whacked out we are in our thinking when we get outside of our normal. It's amazing how satisfied and complacent Christians can be with normal, even when normal is slavery. Let's don't long to go back. Let's don't complain, but let's be confident. Let's be content. And let's cooperate with God and what He's doing right now and see great things happen in the church in the days to come. Now, if I didn't cover anything, I do apologize for that. I've tried to remember everything. Let's run back over just the basics real quick so you'll get it. Church is going to reopen May the 24th. We're going to reopen with 2 services because we're trying to comply with social distancing. The best way we could divide the 2 services is by last name. So if your last name begins with A through I, then you will be in the first service at 9 o'clock coming to worship. If your last name is J through Z, then you will be worshiping in the 11 o'clock service right there. And any other questions that you have, there'll be volunteers here that can answer your questions. Or if they can't answer it, I'll be close by and they'll be able to find me. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to answer your questions. Now, in the middle of all this, we're going to continue our online service. I believe this online presence that we have began here at Appleton, I believe it's something that is essential, and we're going to continue this. Even after we get back into full-blown worship services, we're going to continue this. And so what we'll be doing in the future, Lord willing, is actually recording our services. And so there'll be a couple of folks running some cameras, whatever type cameras we're using. It may just be phones, but there'll be some folks running some cameras in service in the days and weeks and months to come. So we're going to continue this because I believe it's a great opportunity. And I believe since the church has transitioned into this online world, I believe we need to stay there. I believe God opened a door for us to get in there, and I believe the church as a whole needs to stay there and use it for the glory of God, and instead of letting Satan have it and use it for pornography and everything else that he uses it for. So we're going to continue that. So, May 24th, 2 services, 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Make sure you like and share this video. Tell your friends and family members to watch the replay. If they missed it, I'll be putting some announcements out on Facebook in the days to come. Now this Sunday, which is May the 17th, right? This coming Sunday, we'll meet right here online at 10 o'clock as we've been doing, worshiping together. Kingdom Kids will follow behind our morning worship service there that morning. Gather around the phone, the tablet, the TV, whichever it is that you've been using, and let's worship together this coming Sunday. Hey, let me pray with you right now. And I just want to pray for God's greatest blessings on your life. I want to pray for God to give us a spirit of understanding during this time, because this is so different. I'm going to pray that God would help us to humble ourselves. He would help us to understand. He would help us to not complain. And He would help us to cooperate with what He's doing. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank You for all You've done. I thank You for keeping Your people at Appleton Assembly and other churches in our community and city and county. You've kept us safe, and I thank You for this. Lord, You made a way where there was no way. I'm thankful, God, that You provided a means for us to worship together online. Lord, if this would have been just 12 or 15 years ago, we could not have had this opportunity to worship online. Things would have been so different. So I'm thankful for Your divine timing, God. Even though this was a negative thing, this COVID-19, I'm thankful for Your divine timing. I'm thankful for You knowing when the right time was to allow it to show its face. And God, I pray for Your people right now. Lord, I'm thankful that we're about to open church up on May the 24th, but I pray for Your people right now, that You would give us an understanding spirit, that You would help us to not mumble and murmur and complain as Israel did and end up staying in the wilderness longer than is necessary, but help us to trust You, God, every step of the way. I pray Your greatest blessings on Your people, God. I pray, God, that You would still keep us from COVID-19. I still believe that the healing power of Jesus is greater than the coronavirus. And while Alabama's numbers have not peaked yet, Lord, I plead the blood of Jesus over Your people. I declare healing and strength, Lord, in Jesus' mighty name. God, let there be an attitude of expectancy in our hearts as we get ready to come back together on the 24th. God, keep us safe until we're able to meet together publicly again, if that's Your will. We ask it in Jesus' mighty name. Amen and amen. Hey, now remember this. When Moses died after dealing with Israel for 40 years and all of their complaining because they didn't like what was going on, and for some reason they thought they liked slavery better than they did being free in the wilderness. When Moses died and Joshua took over and was about to lead them into the promised land, God spoke to Joshua and said, "Go and tell the people to prepare themselves, because they're about to go away they've never been before." And Joshua went and made it known to the people. He said, "Get yourself ready." As a matter of fact, I think they had 3 days. I don't know if 3 days applies right here or not, because it's more than 3 days till the 24th. But you've got this period of time to prepare yourself, because where you're about to go is a place you've never been before. Go with expectancy. Don't go with fear. Go believing God is going to do great and mighty things. Don't go looking for the mechanics of what was or what used to be. Don't go looking for our normal programs. Go just like Joshua told Israel. Go and expect something brand new. Prepare yourself. Pray, fast, do whatever you need to do. Prepare yourself for what God's about to do. Because I believe what God's about to do, just like for Joshua and Israel, I believe what God's about to do is greater than anything the church has ever seen. I believe the best is yet to come. People of God, get ready for what God's about to do, because great things are coming. God bless you. Have a great week. I look forward to worshiping with you right here online this coming Sunday at 10 o'clock. God bless you.